What is up, folks? Jason and I back at it again with a NFL Week 2 recap. Jason and I had a lot of fun last week and looking forward to doing it again. Jason, thanks for joining me tonight. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good, Cole. Ready to talk some NFL football. I think we had a lot of great games this week, so let's get into it.
Yeah, my friend. It was honestly a good week of a weekend of football overall. I guess quickly, Jason, before we do get into too much, quick shout out to Blake. Blake and I had ourselves a pretty decent day on Saturday, able to take in some U Sports football as well as the CFL game. Had a lot of fun, and then enjoyed some football all day Sunday. So football season is in the full swing, and it's been good to do these CFL shows, NFL shows weekly, and watch a lot of good football on the weekend. So I guess let's get into it, buddy, and not waste any of anyone's time. But before we do, I'd appreciate everyone continue to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Support Jason and I as we continue to do these weekly shows. So, Jason, as week 2 kicked off last week, we had the Minnesota Vikings traveling to Philadelphia, if I'm not mistaken. And Philadelphia was able to pull off the win 34-28. And to be honest, I was looking forward to this game, Jason. And to be completely honest, long day at work. Thursday is a long way into the week. I fell asleep probably somewhere into the second quarter. Woke up pretty much, I think, around maybe like 2 or 3 minutes left to go in the game. Missed the majority of the game, but it was able to catch the highlights afterwards. Jason, what was just your overall thoughts from this game?
Well, I mean, the thing is, Philadelphia didn't really play all too well. I think Jalen Hurts didn't even throw for 200 yards in this one. You look at Minnesota's stat lines. I mean, Kirk Cousins threw for 364 yards and 4 touchdowns in this one. So you look at that and you say, oh, the Vikings played really close with the Eagles and they ultimately, could have won. But ultimately, a lot of those yards and, statistics were piled up by the Vikings late in the fourth quarter of that game when they were, attempting a comeback, which they almost were able to do. But I think at the end of the day, I never was really too worried about the Eagles being able to pull this one out. I just think that they're the much more well-rounded team and they can beat you in so many different ways, even when they're not playing that well.
So, Jason, like I said, I wasn't able to catch the game live. I was able to throw on the highlights when I woke up. To me, the Vikings, I don't want to maybe necessarily compare them to maybe like the Chargers of the NFC per se, but it seems like I know you reminded everyone last week that I believe the Chargers were, I think you said undefeated in one-score games last year.
Vikings, yeah.
Yeah, Vikings. But it seems like they get into the playoffs and they kind of come up short and my Vikings, my dad's a Vikings fan, so I kind of have a close eye on Minnesota from afar, and it seems like they always kind of maybe come up short or maybe like you mentioned, right? Kirk Cousins has 364 yards. It kind of seems like they have things clicking offensively. They're not able to probably capitalize as much as they wanted to. Justin Jefferson. I'm sure everyone saw that the force or the fumble that ended up being a touchback. Wasn't able to break the plane of the goal line there. Ends up fumbling out of the back of the end zone or the side of the end zone, excuse me. And that's points off the board for the Vikings there. But it seems like through 2 weeks the Vikings have had some bad luck here so far. And then from Philadelphia's side of things. You look at it, and they've won kind of ugly 2 weeks in a row. I think they won 25-10 versus New England week 1. And then I wouldn't say this is ugly by any means, but you touched on it a little bit that Jalen Hurts probably didn't have his best game, and that just maybe shows you how strong the Philadelphia Eagles are as a team because they're able to win. When their quarterback's not at its best. And it was just an interesting game to go back and see the highlights and turn them on. From Minnesota's perspective. Falling to 0-2, that's nothing to shy from or downplay. Excuse me, I guess I should say. I don't know the exact stat, but I don't think that the numbers are exactly in 0-2 teams' favor when they start out the season 0-2. I think it's pretty low. The percentage of teams that end up making the playoffs when they do, and in fact start 0-2 to start the season. Jason, did you have?
I think it's one team in the last 3 years, and it was the Bengals last year that made the playoffs, starting 0-2 or something like that. I saw that.
Yes. So it's never a good thing to kind of get behind the eight ball of a season. Obviously, it's possible, but it's definitely not ideal when it comes to an NFL season. Obviously, it being 18 weeks, 17 games. Every game is very critical and crucial to your playoff push when it comes down to December, January football getting into the playoffs. You look back at things and you lose maybe one or two of these games that maybe you think you shouldn't, and it probably costs you a playoff position, or maybe you're on the outside looking in a few weeks before that even. So to close things out, like I said, the Eagles win 34-28. Jason, anything final thoughts on the Thursday night football week 2?
Well, I just wanted to shout out DeAndre Swift, who had 175 rushing yards in this game. Really a breakout game for him after having some disappointing years in Detroit. So, I mean, Philly has just replaced Miles Sanders with a guy that's just as capable in DeAndre Swift. So look for him to have a big season from here on out.
Yeah, good shout out to him. I was a little bit sleeping on him personally. DeAndre Swift going to Philadelphia, from a fantasy perspective, I kind of bought into the stock of Rashad Penny, a few of those backups with the offensive line that they have. They like to run the ball up in Philadelphia. I was kind of leaning towards maybe some of those other backs being able to capitalize on DeAndre Swift maybe not being able to show all of himself. But you know what? That was a very impressive game, like you said, watching the highlights there after the game. So shout out to him. And moving to Sunday football, Jason and I were usually going to do one game for the early slate, but the early slate was fairly busy. And if I'm being honest, when the Bills game is on, it's usually hard to pay attention to the other games, even though I do throw it on Red Zone. But I was able to watch for the two games that went into overtime. I was able to watch a majority of the closing moments in the fourth quarter as well as overtime. But I guess we should start with the Baltimore Ravens beating the Cincinnati Bengals 27-24 in a big-time AFC North divisional matchup, if I'm not mistaken. The first thing that, not to take anything away from the Baltimore Ravens, but the first thing that jumps out to me is the Cincinnati Bengals being 0-2 as well as 0-2 in the division itself. Jason, what are your first takeaways from this game?
I was actually going to go to the Ravens side because my first thought when I looked at this game is Lamar Jackson back. I mean, he never really was away, but it's just if he could just stay healthy, I think, this is one of the best versions of Lamar Jackson we've seen, at least from a passing perspective through 2 weeks. I mean, he looked very comfortable in this game. Obviously, they have the new offensive coordinator after moving on from Greg Roman in the offseason. So really interested to see how he continues to play this season. He looks really good through 2 weeks. That defense looks really good. The addition of Zay Flowers in that receiving core has made a huge difference. He had a major catch down the field in this one to, really, stem the momentum for the Ravens after the Bengals had something going in that third quarter there. So I think got to give a lot of credit to the Ravens in this one. And, the Bengals, just another awful start to the season. You're muted.
From a Lamar Jackson perspective, I believe, we'll get into it later. Josh Allen, I believe, is number 1 in the league at completion percentage right now. I want to say Lamar Jackson is number 2. He's been very efficient so far, taking care of the football, making sure he's scoring touchdowns for his team. And like you said, I wouldn't say Lamar is back by any means. He was a little bit banged up last season, but showing to his old form as that dangerous dual threat quarterback that we knew that Lamar could be. As well as some of those, the Zay Flowers addition has been nice. I still think that there's a little bit more that we could see from Zay Flowers potentially later down the season. And from the Bengals perspective, this is a little bit worrisome. 0-2 to start the season, 0-2 in the division, and then I believe I'm not too sure if Joe Burrow left the game. But I believe that what was kind of,
it was the last drive, so he didn't get a chance to go back on the field. So we don't know the answer to that question. But they said, I think Zach Taylor, the head coach for the Bengals, said it's his status is uncertain for next week, and they play on Monday night versus the Rams, I believe.
Yeah, so maybe a little bit of a break for them, seeing as that they have the extra day to prepare and rest for Joe Burrow. But definitely something that's concerning. Not to compare the two, but we saw something, with maybe Aaron Rodgers. I even think of Kevin Durant a few years ago. I believe Kevin Durant was dealing with, a calf injury, calf strain, something like that before he ended up tearing his Achilles. I believe Aaron Rodgers was dealing with some sort of calf strain as well. When maybe you play with some of those injuries, you overcompensate and it can maybe stress out some other areas in the body, and it's never a good thing. And seeing as that it's in season already, it's usually hard to kind of get back to full health or anywhere close when you're playing with these injuries into the season. So from a Bengals perspective, very concerning. The division. We'll get to the Cleveland Browns and Steelers a little bit later, but who knows? Maybe that one of those teams are able to capitalize. I know we talked about a little bit of both teams last week. Both strong teams. I think the culture that they kind of established in Pittsburgh. You can never maybe count out the Steelers. Cleveland, depending on how kind of maybe they're able to build with Deshaun Watson in year two, we'll maybe see if they're able to compete for a playoff position, but definitely nothing to continue. I guess this is maybe a trend for the Cincinnati Bengals. Slow starts. I believe you said that they were the only team in the past 3 years to make it in the playoffs after being 0-2. I want to say they started 0-2
last year, I think.
Yeah. So very concerning. And I guess to move on to a next game, Jason, is there any final thoughts on that game?
No, I think that's about it for this game. Let's move on.
Okay, and this was the first overtime game of the morning, if I'm not mistaken. And the Tennessee Titans took it 27-24 over the LA Chargers. The Titans continue to be. I definitely probably slept on them a little bit more than I would like to admit this year. The Titans, with Mike Vrabel, probably should be given a little bit more respect. I think Mike Vrabel's kind of created a culture there, established a culture there that they're going to compete. There's kind of no BS. Maybe they don't have the flashiest or biggest name players. I know they did sign DeAndre Hopkins in the offseason. They have Derrick Henry. They kind of re-up with Ryan Tannehill in that marriage. It's not the glitz and glamour that maybe I would have liked, but they continue to be a tough out week in and week out. And I think they're kind of built to play that ugly style game. If Derrick Henry is able to be healthy, take advantage of the play action, you have a receiver like DeAndre Hopkins. And if Ryan Tannehill is able to be somewhat effective with that connection, I think that opens up Derrick Henry even more into the latest stages of his career. From a Chargers perspective, man, I guess, we talked about it last week. They continue to kind of find themselves on the wrong end of close matchups or close games, big games, whatever you want to call it. Jason, where would you like to go with this game?
I want to say that Ryan Tannehill had a huge bounce back in this game. I mean, he had a really rough week one. I think he threw like either 3 or 4 interceptions against the Saints in week one. So not a good outing for him to start the season. He bounces back with a good effort in this one. And I mean, I have a lot of belief in the Titans, besides making one of the stupidest trades of all time, in my opinion, with trading away A.J. Brown last year. I mean, that's just one move that made absolutely no sense to me, but that's besides the point. I think that, this is a team that has a lot of fight in them. They believe in their, schemes that they have with the coaching that they have there. They're always ready to play, even if they, don't have the, most talented roster in the league, like you said. And I think, they're a team that's going to run the ball on you. Treylon Burks is a guy in year 2 that's looks like he's breaking out a bit. I think he had 3 catches for like 70-something yards in this one. So, I mean, he had a pretty good game in this one. And I think, the Titans are a team that you got to watch out for in the AFC, not necessarily as one of those top-tier teams, but as a team that really could be a factor in the playoff race coming forward.
Yeah, and their division is open in the sense. I definitely Jacksonville is, I think, rightfully so, probably the favorite, but Tennessee's kind of I would say, like, a majority of the roster has been on the team for a few years, at least some of the pivotal guys, right? Some of those leaders in the locker room that kind of those Ryan Tannehills, Derrick Henrys that I mentioned, those guys have playoff experience, right? So they're nothing to shy away from when it comes to maybe potentially competing for the AFC South crown later in the season. And the Chargers, man, I just don't know what to think of the Chargers because I was fairly high on the Chargers going into the season. I want to say I picked them to finish sixth in the conference. And it's frustrating that they kind of seem to always end up coming on the wrong side of the wrong side of the game, and it just it's weird because it looks like they played good, and it looks like Justin Herbert plays good, but for whatever reason they just don't get the bounces in pivotal moments in clutch time, and it's even more kind of baffling when you look back at those. Always hear of football games come down to 4 or 5 plays, and usually those 4 or 5 plays are usually very big and crucial mistakes on the Chargers' part, and you can kind of go back and like, man, that was either a big coaching error or that was just a big error on the player. Whatever it may be, it usually seems like they kind of trade and flip flop on these errors and kind of reasons why they end up losing these games. Now that probably, in the division, obviously they have the Chiefs that'll probably ultimately win the division. I feel pretty confident in that. And then you see Denver. Obviously, Denver loses a heartbreaker. We saw the Oakland Raiders this weekend. I feel like the Chargers can kind of overcome this a little bit. I'm not too sure if maybe they'll able to snag a sixth or seventh playoff seed, but I still feel like they'll be able to finish second in the division. I feel like they'll hopefully start to trend upwards as we get later in the season. But I guess, Jason, let's close out that game and get to the final game of the morning slate, and that was another. This is the game that I turned on right away after the Bills game. 37-31 comeback by the Seattle Seahawks in overtime over the Detroit Lions. Jason, what were your first impressions?
Well, it felt like deja vu from last year when these two teams played. I think it was a week 2 game or week 3 game last year as well. And it was another really high scoring affair that went back and forth. I mean, that was really the game that I saw that I was like, wow, Geno Smith is really playing well. And then, of course, he went on to have a really strong season last year. And I mean, Geno Smith had a really strong bounce back game in this one after having a bad week 1 game against the Rams. So that was good to see from him. The big story, I think, coming out of this game for the Lions, or the big play that really changed this game, was a pick 6 by, what is his name? I have it written down here somewhere. Whoever for the Trey Brown for the Seahawks got the pick 6 on Jared Goff. Goff had a huge interceptionless streak that was snapped by that play, and that pick 6 ultimately was a huge play in the game. I think it gave the Seahawks a 2-score lead in the fourth quarter. The Lions were able to come back and tie it and force overtime, but ultimately, I mean, the Seahawks just had their offense rolling in that one, and that was a key play in that game from the defense on the other side of the ball. So I think in this game, it was another excellent game between these two teams. Sucks for the Lions because that was the game last year that cost them a playoff spot because they lost on tiebreakers to Seattle at the end. So I hope it doesn't happen this year. I hope they can win the division this year. I've been saying that the first couple episodes we've had here on the podcast, but I think at the end of the day, just a really good game, and it was good to see Seattle bounce back and show that they're probably not. Last year wasn't really a fluke for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime it's a NFC game, I have really no skin in the game, seeing as that kind of the tiebreakers and all that stuff doesn't really come into play. So I was just enjoying the game and kind of seeing who was going to win. And ultimately, going back, like I mentioned, I'm usually not able to catch majority of the morning games or whenever the Bills play. But I went back and going through the stat sheet. I believe the Lions had 3 turnovers that kind of let basically Seattle back in the game, and or kind of I wouldn't say handed the game to Seattle, but I would be hard pressed to see the Detroit Lions lose that ball game if they didn't have 3 of those turnovers, maybe even just 1 or 2 of those turnovers. See how the game plays out from there. So from a Lions perspective, I don't think it's any panic or anything like that. I think the Lions will be a competitive bunch for this season, and for Lions fans hope for hopefully a few seasons to come. I think they built a little bit of a young kind of nucleus here that they can build in the future. And the only ask I would say is give me more Jahmyr Gibbs for me and my fantasy team. But we'll say that for another day.
You might get it with David Montgomery's injury. I think he got carted off in this one. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he did as well. And sorry to Blake. I know he wanted to probably talk a little bit longer about some Seattle Seahawks football, but it was good to see the Seattle Seahawks win ultimately, and like you said, I think this win proves that Seattle, it wasn't a fluke that they were a competitive bunch last year, and if you're a Lions fan, I wouldn't chalk this up to, we need to do a lot of rethinking and re-scheming and sort of stuff. Continue to be you guys. I think you guys will win a lot of games this year and be competitive. Same to the Seahawks. I think both teams would be in the playoff picture in the NFC come December. So to move on to, I guess, the afternoon slate of games, we had one game that we wanted to touch on specifically, and that one was, for a little while, I was very concerned about the New York Giants. I believe they went 6 quarters, Jason, without scoring a point, which is very brutal. Obviously, they were shut out 40-0 in Week 1 by the Dallas Cowboys, and then I want to say it was 20-0. I want to say at halftime. The New York Giants, though, end up coming back on the Arizona Cardinals, 31-28 to take the game. And from an Arizona perspective, I think this was kind of expected. Maybe not them to be out to a 20-point lead, but probably expected to lose a lot of games this year. I think a lot of people projected them to probably pick towards, maybe number 1 or 2 in the draft next season. From a Giants perspective, I had a little bit more hopes than what we've seen through 6 quarters. That being said, they were able to have a very impressive remaining 2 quarters and come back and pull out a very gutsy win. What was your kind of thoughts seeing the Giants in the first half and then maybe in the second half and after the game, Jason?
Well, my initial thoughts are that it saved their season. I mean, like you said earlier, with the odds of making the playoffs, that's starting 0-2, very low in the NFL. But just the way that the Giants looked through 6 quarters of the season, being outscored 60-0 in the first 6 quarters of the season, like you said, really disappointing start to the season. But like you said, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And the Giants were able to put together a great second half. Credit to Daniel Jones for having, really strong second half for them. Darren Waller, I should say, not Jalen Waller. Darren Waller had a great second half for them in this one, coming alive, and I think he could be a big piece for them this season. Jalen Hyatt, a rookie for them, really impressed in this one as well. So I thought that was a big good sign for the Giants in the second half of that game. And then for the Cardinal side, I mean, they're just tanking to a different level with the way they blew this game in the second half. I mean, the Giants just marched up and down the field in that second half after the Cardinals defense looked promising through the first couple quarters.
I believe they're calling it the collapse for Caleb. Collapse for Caleb Williams. I think that's what they're the kids are saying on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. And being up 20-0, I was definitely like, man, if the Cardinals are beating the Giants, how bad are the Giants after 6 quarters was my first thoughts. They end up pulling it out in the end. And maybe this is a little bit unfair to say, but my kind of thoughts after the game was, where would the Giants maybe be if Brian Dable and Joe Shane didn't end up in New York, if maybe they went a different direction from head coach GM. I don't really know nothing about GMs per se, but I really respect Brian Dable, and I think what he's able to bring to a team, how he's able to coach. I think, not to get, I guess, off topic from the Giants, but maybe what you've seen of maybe some of these turnovers and maybe irresponsible play from Josh Allen is maybe from that lack of voice from Brian Dable, in my opinion. I think Brian Dable had personally a big part of that development in Josh Allen. I think he had a big part in why the Giants were able to get into the playoffs last year, be a successful year for them, 2023, when probably they were probably projected to have some growing pains. Probably were projected to move on from Daniel Jones after a struggling season. They end up having a season good enough to extend him, pay him up there amongst some of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. I want to say he makes around like $35, $40 million annually, something like that. So my thoughts are kind of, where would the Giants be without Brian Dable? and maybe that is a little bit unfair, but that's just kind of the praise that I have for Brian Dable and where I kind of hold him in the NFL coaching standards. But Jason, is there anything else that you'd want to touch on from the Giants' comeback over the Arizona Cardinals?
Not particularly. I agree. Dable is a big part of why the Giants were able to have so much success last season. So definitely agree with that point. And Josh Allen's, kind of regression in terms of the turnovers. I definitely think you have a good point there as well.
And do not worry, folks. We will get into it later. You see the jersey I'm wearing. I will be defending my man later, silencing the doubters, because there's been a lot of smack talk about 17, the Buffalo Bills, the previous 7 days before the win on Sunday. So we'll get into it later, folks. Getting into Sunday Night Football. And before we do that, if you guys, I believe we have a few viewers, continue to show support, like, comment, subscribe. Get in the chat here tonight and interact with us. Even if you guys aren't able to catch the show live, you guys can catch the show over on Jason's channel, usually the next day or usually maybe the next morning, depending on how busy Jason is. And you can also view it on my channel right after. Just go over to the live tab, and it should be there with all the rest of the live streams that we have on the channel. So, Jason, let's get back into things. Sunday Night Football, a game that both of, I would imagine, a lot of Bills fans, as well as you and I, had our eyes on, seeing as that it was, divisional opponents and rivals, and the Miami Dolphins pull things out 24-17 over the New England Patriots. And what were your initial thoughts, Jason?
Well, I was saying to my buddy when I was watching this game that I love these types of games where it's the other teams in your division playing against each other, especially when the Bills already have a win that week, and just watching them, go to war with each other and beat each other up. So I always enjoy watching, the Patriots play the Jets or the Dolphins play the Patriots, et cetera, et cetera. So, I think I really enjoyed watching this game from that perspective. But I think for the most part in this game, the Dolphins just really showed they're the far superior team. They made some mistakes in this game that kept this game much closer than it should have been. Patriots had a blocked field goal. It was a really sick play by, I think the guy got a running start off the edge. Really interesting play that the Patriots cooked up there. That's classic Bill Belichick there. But I think at the end of the day, it was kind of smoke and mirrors and how the Patriots were able to kind of keep it close in this one. Ultimately, it came down to that final drive, and I don't think they would have gotten to the end zone even if they got that first down on that final drive. But I think at the end of the day, the Dolphins are just a much more explosive team. They have so much team speed on offense, not just Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, who Jalen Waddle obviously got really got a big hit in this one. So hopefully he's all right. But, Raheem Mostert, they have a rookie there, I forget his name, who's also, a track star. So I think, that's what stands out with Miami's offense. They're just so hard to defend with all the motion that they do combined with the speed that they have. So I think at the end of the day, they're just a really talented team. And I think the Patriots are just a step behind them in that regard.
Yeah, and sorry, Jason, not to get a little bit sad here, or maybe dark, whatever you want to call it, but I saw this on Twitter too, and if it was true, man, that was definitely some sad news. Apparently a fan passed away because I guess maybe he got beaten to death, I guess, at the stadium. So just very sad news. I want to say that he was with his son at the game. So just thoughts and prayers, and thinking about the family and stuff like that. That should never happen. At a football game, you go to a football game to have a good time, distract yourself for 3 hours, whatever it may be. That should never happen. So not to stay on that subject too long. I didn't want to be too sad or dark about things, but thoughts and prayers. Definitely some sad news if true. So, Jason, to maybe let's turn things to a lighter side. I got to ask you, was it a first down or was he short, Jason?
I thought when I saw with my naked eye, I thought that it was a first down, but I thought it was as close as you could possibly make it, and I was surprised they reversed it because it was that close.
I agree. Now, I can't lie. We saw, I believe, earlier in the day, what was it? Patrick Mahomes is getting some pressure in the pocket. He tries to throw the ball away. I believe it was maybe drawn up a running back screen or something like that. He ends up throwing it to the offensive line accidentally when trying to throw it away. The offensive line kind of just stands there frozen. this offensive lineman, I want to say it was Hunter Henry that caught the football for the New England Patriots. I want to say it was a tight end for the New England Patriots.
Mike Gesicki.
And he laterals it to an offensive lineman. The offensive lineman had no hesitation. He went straight for that first down. Like yourself, I thought initially he had the first down. Ultimately, they end up reversing the call. Like you said, usually when it's that close of a call, and it's been called on the field, usually that's what they stick with. That being said, they kind of went with maybe a shocker on this time. It's the NFL, so it's not Bush League or anything like that. Jason, we have this rule in our beer league over here that cool catches matters, what we call them. Maybe if his foot's out of bounds or something like that, or maybe he didn't drag the foot. Usually, sometimes in beer league, we'll let buddies get friends get away with it. In my opinion, we should have let cool runs, conversions, whatever you want to call it, count. That was pretty sweet for an offensive lineman to have no hesitation. And most of these offensive linemen, I would imagine, are probably former running backs, and maybe not all of them, but you'd be surprised at how athletic some of these big boys are, and the amount of weight that they lose. You think of someone like Taylor Lewan, I believe, already lost like 50 pounds. I believe he's only been retired for an off season, and he weighs as much as Josh Allen already. So it's like some of these guys were not as big as you probably remember. So it was just super cool to see. Now, from a Dolphins perspective, I do have to tip my cap to them before I maybe try to burst a little bit of their bubble, Jason, because I got to do that as the good Bills fan that I am. I said last week, Jason, that I wasn't sure if the Dolphins had the recipe to win dirty. And this week that they proved to me personally that they could win a little bit dirtier. New England's that type of team that kind of you never want to take for granted if you're in their division or not. Now, that being said, that we're in the division. We play them twice a year, very familiar. Pretty much you haven't changed schemes when it comes to offensive defenses matchup when it comes to the Miami Dolphins offense versus the New England Patriots defense. A lot of similar faces, similar schemes. So for Bill Belichick, it was probably it was I don't want to say easy scheming, but he was probably well prepared on the Miami Dolphins and what they like to do. So maybe it wasn't a surprise that that there was they only scored 24 points after having the outcome that they had last week. I want to say so to give them props here. They kind of proved, right? So Raheem Mostert, 18 carries, 121 yards, 2 touchdowns. Tua Tagovailoa had the 1 interception, but honestly, outside of maybe being a tad underthrown, and I would only say a tad underthrown because it was like a 55 yard throw. So how much farther could you throw the football at that point? Ultimately, I think that interception was more of a better play by Christian Gonzalez to kind of make a speed turn, go meet Tyreek Hill down the sideline. I'm not too sure, Jason, if you follow or any of our listeners or viewers that follow Brian Baldinger on Twitter. He does those Baldy breakdowns. He was kind of maybe mentioning that maybe Gonzalez was maybe baiting Tua a little bit and kind of was waiting for Tua to make that throw and then go get the ball. Now, that being said, Christian Gonzalez, I want to say, is like a 6'3" corner where Tyreek Hill is around, I want to say, like 5'8", 5'9". So that's in favor of the DB in that sense, right? So outside of that turnover, I think Tua was able to, as advertised, take what the defense gives him. What we've kind of been accustomed to, or maybe what we wanted to categorize Tua as maybe a check down Charlie or a system quarterback. We've saw now for the past, I'd say year and 2 games that Tua can definitely extend the ball downfield. He can play outside of script and make some things happen. So my props to Tua. Now, that being said, my question, I guess, to NFL fans, any listeners, Dolphins fans, if Noah's listening, Jason, to you specifically, did Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots maybe potentially show somewhat of a maybe blueprint to slow down the Miami Dolphins and the high-powered offense that they possess? I forget what was it, Collinsworth on Sunday Night Football. They touched on it a little bit to start the game. I want to say the Patriots were in a three safety package for a majority of the game, and they were kind of touching on it on the broadcast system, referring to the three safeties deep and how they kind of had one linebacker essentially in the middle of the field, kind of daring them to go underneath, dink and dunk up and down the field. Now, not to slight my man Josh Allen too much, but Josh Allen can learn a thing or two, from Tua's performance. He was able to dink and dunk all night long, take what the New England Patriots defense was giving him outside of that one throw that, he got maybe a little bit impatient, wanted Tyreek down the middle of the field. And I think ultimately, if maybe he's able to put 5 or 10 yards more on that football, that's probably a touchdown, and he's able to have an even bigger night. So, do you think maybe that Bill Belichick maybe potentially showed somewhat of a blueprint that maybe how you can maybe slow down? I wouldn't say stop the Miami Dolphins, because they're going to get theirs, right? As we've seen, they won the game, right? So it's not to take anything away from them, Jason, but do you think maybe potentially slow them down?
It's hard to say, because I think the Patriots, one thing they've always done well is take away your top weapon and make the rest of your team beat you. And specifically, they showed on the broadcast, I think the last 5 games that Bill Belichick has played against Tyreek Hill, and just the lack of production that Tyreek Hill has had in those games. Tyreek had a touchdown in this one, but I don't think he had a ton of yardage, if I recall correctly. Not a lot of big plays in this one, but I wouldn't say that the Patriots really shut them down. I think the Dolphins made a lot of errors. Like I said, that blocked field goal, I mean, that's 3 points right there. They had a muffed exchange on a 3rd and 1 play that forced them to punt late in the game as well. So that could have led to points as well. So I think the Dolphins overall had a very strong game offensively still. But, maybe some other teams can learn from what the Patriots did. It's really hard to tell, because I think the Patriots also have some very good defensive personnel on that side of the ball. You got a guy like Christian Gonzalez, like you said, a great interception. I think that was just an outstanding athletic play, like you were saying. But I think at the end of the day, I wouldn't be reading too much into it if I was, these other teams in the NFL, because I think at the end of the day, I think the Dolphins just have so many ways they can beat you. And I think one thing that came out of this game is the run game for the Dolphins. They really took it to the Patriots in that regard with Raheem Mostert.
They did indeed. And I can't, I just gotta, I guess, scratch my itch with that question, Jason, because, players can't look that far forward, but, us fans are able to. We obviously have the Washington Commanders as Bills fans this upcoming Sunday. We have the Miami Dolphins in 2 Sundays. That being said, Jason, I'm not too sure personally if, McDermott's that keen on kind of maybe copying and pasting exactly what Bill Belichick did. That being said, I do remind Bills fans, listeners, viewers watching, the Buffalo Bills did not sign Taylor Rapp for no reason. I know Taron Johnson's a great nickel corner. I definitely do not want the Bills bringing off Taron Johnson by any means to bring Taylor Rapp on the field. Now, that being said, if you're able to go maybe dime, leave Matt Milano on the field as your one middle linebacker, bring on Taylor Rapp, you have Taron Johnson as well as your nickel corner. In that scenario, you're probably bringing off Terrell Bernard, your current middle linebacker, who's had a decent few weeks. But I couldn't help but kind of notice that the broadcast was touching on it a little bit, and like I said, I didn't want to say that they shut them down by any means, right? But if personally, and for most Bills fans, I think they kind of agree, right? If you go into a game and you held your opponent to 24 points, you're probably going to think that as a Bills fan, okay, we probably scored 28 points or 30 points, right? And we're going to win that game. So for me, it's kind of more so, can the Bills hold the Dolphins to 27 points, give them that extra field goal that you mentioned of the block field goal, and then the Bills win the game 31-27. That's all good by me. You can have all those stats that you want. Raheem Mostert can have those 121 rushing yards. Did you guys beat us down the field more than we beat you guys down the field? That's kind of more so my question. And I think that'll probably have a big outcome in who wins in here in a few weeks. So to get back to business here, Jason, the Miami Dolphins continue to move to 2-0, undefeated, and I would say, I would say rightfully the best team in the AFC as of now. Currently through 2 weeks, they've shown, I think the best brand of football so far in the AFC, and I'd even probably go as far to say the NFC. They played some impressive football so far through 2 weeks, and like I said last week, the Miami Dolphins folks are going to be a problem. And the only thing I guess I hope is that the Bills are able to eliminate them come January is the only thing I would say. So, Jason, anything to close out Sunday Night Football, buddy?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a big shout out for the big performance in this one. Bradley Chubb, he had a big forced fumble earlier in this game, and he also had a big sack late in the game. I think it was in the second half that he got that. And so I think that was big for him because he's been kind of quiet since coming over from the Broncos in that trade last year.
Yes, he has. Very good point that you made there. That was a huge forced fumble, huge effort play as well that he went and tracked the ball to carry it down. That huge, whatever you want to call it, peanut punch, a tomahawk swat, the huge forced fumble that kind of put the, I don't know if it's the final nail in the coffin, but kind of ultimately swayed things in Miami Dolphins' favor for good. So to move on, 24-17 Dolphins win over the Miami over the New England Patriots. We go into Monday Night Football, which is, I believe, going to feature a few double headers. I want to say this upcoming week there's 2 double headers as well. Jason, forgive me, I didn't remember seeing that maybe there was going to be some double headers. Is double headers going to be a regular occurrence that we're going to see, or?
Well, it's not so much double headers. It's more like concurrent games.
Yeah,
excuse me. 1 hour after each other. And I was trying to think why the NFL, what like appeals to them to do that. And I think my theory is that it actually helps for fantasy purposes because if you have a second game there, there's more potential players on your team that will be playing that week. There'll be some matchups in your league that are probably undecided going into Monday night than otherwise would be with just the standalone one game. So I think it would give incentive for fans that watch purely for fantasy purposes to watch on Monday nights that otherwise wouldn't. So that's my theory as to part of the reason why the NFL would do this. But what are your thoughts on that?
I'm not too sure why they do it personally. Great point by you that it is not a doubleheader. It is very personally inconvenient because there's not like a red zone on Monday Night Football, right? Where personally, when I have kind of the maybe 2 screens set up where I have the game, let's say the 4 o'clock game on the TV and then the 5 o'clock game on the laptop. Usually, I have one muted. So when kind of you have red zone muted, right? You just turn and usually it's a big play or it's an important play. It's an important drive, whatever it may be, right? Red zone goes back and forth between all the important situations, games, all that good stuff. If you have that one other game muted, you can kind of tend to block it out or even forget that it's on. So, personally, I started with, we were talking a little bit yesterday preparing for the show. I want to say that you said that you were watching the Cleveland Browns Pittsburgh game. I was actually opposite. I was watching the Saints Carolina game and had the Cleveland Browns game on in the background. Now, that being said, we will start with the Cleveland Browns, Pittsburgh Steelers, and we cannot start anywhere else. T's and P's, thoughts and prayers to Nick Chubb, an absolute devastating injury, gruesome injury. Just you hate to see that for anybody. You hate to see that for the running back position, Jason. I want to say, what is that? David Montgomery, Saquon Barkley, some big names at the running back position go down to injury this week. They were fighting all offseason for running back pay to be equal, to be given some value, when it comes to the running back market. And it just you can't help but be gutted for these guys when these sort of things happen. Nick Chubb, I believe, has a little bit of history as well with knee injuries. Had from what I remember, somewhat of a pretty gruesome knee injury to the same exact knee actually in college at the University of Georgia. Just absolutely disgusting. For me, Jason, I'm not too sure. I'm one of those guys that I'll see it once. I don't want to see it again. I don't want to say I'm squeamish, but I hate seeing those things over and over again. And of course, the kind of era we live in. It's all over social media. So I'm scrolling and all I see is this thing, and I'm like, oh my God. So just thoughts and prayers to Nick Chubb, and hopefully he's able to come back. That's definitely been some concern on social media that some people thinking maybe some concern for his career and maybe it being over. So anything maybe you wanted to say to Nick Chubb and thoughts and prayers?
Yeah, I mean, just a devastating injury. And I mean, like, I'm hoping it's not one of those kind of Todd Gurley-ish situation where it's like, I mean, Todd didn't have that big, second injury in the NFL. It was more like a condition. I think it was arthritis in his knee that developed in his playing career in the NFL. But going back to his college career, Todd Gurley had a devastating knee injury, in his senior year, I believe, or junior year. And, it's remarkable that he was still a top 10 pick given that. But Nick Chubb, very similar, very, very talented back, also from the University of Georgia as well. So the fact that he suffered a major injury in college, I believe it was just a clean ACL, PCL, all ligament tear from his time in college. And then to see just the devastation from that injury yesterday. I mean, I saw that and I was like, that is an all-time gruesome injury. Like, it's right up there with some of the worst ones I've seen in sports. I mean, I think of the Paul George injuries that he suffered years ago. That one in March Madness.
Kevin Ware?
Yeah, Kevin Ware. Yeah,
I'll never forget that.
I think that's got to be the worst one still I've ever seen. The Navarro Bowman knee injury in the NFC Championship game for this San Francisco 49ers versus the Seattle Seahawks. So, I mean, those are the ones that come to mind. But, I mean, just feel so bad for Nick Chubb, one of the best running backs in our league. I mean, before yesterday, I would say he was right up there in terms of the best running back in the NFL. So my thoughts go out to him, and the Cleveland Browns are going to have trouble, replacing what he brings to the table, even though Jerome Ford looked really good yesterday.
He did indeed. So, my man Blake, says no this past week and upcoming week. That's it, I believe. And then we do not have any more Monday night staggered games, whatever you want to call them, as well, Blake. We won't talk too long because I wouldn't say they were maybe boring. I'd love to talk some Bills football, and we will indeed. But I was dealing with some stuff. Obviously, shout out to my former team, the VI Raiders, going through a little bit of tough time. So we were dealing with some team meetings, I guess you could say, kind of figuring out kind of the direction for the team and where they want to head for the future, getting some alumni on board. Shout out to Sean Arabsky, current GM as well. I played with him for a couple of years. He's taken over as interim head coach for the remainder of the season. Hopefully he's able to maybe lead the team to a win or two this season. So I was kind of distracted for a majority of the game, especially after, I guess, pretty much the last thing I remember is the Nick Chubb injury. And then kind of watching both games from the background, majority of the games from the background, starting with the Steelers game. The two things that jumped out to me is that the Steelers defense is as advertised. I believe they created 2 turnovers for touchdowns. Both, I want to say Highsmith was involved on both. I want to say he was the one that forced the fumble on TJ Watt's fumble recovery touchdown, and then he was the one that intercepted the ball for touchdown, I want to say, to start the game, I believe. And outside of a 71-yard George Pickens touchdown, the Steelers offense was pretty much sleepwalking through a majority of that game. Not a lot to show for. Personally, it seemed like the coaching staff kind of was leaning towards Jaylen Warren more so than Najee Harris to end the game. It seemed like Jaylen Warren was in on a little bit more of the pivotal drives there in the fourth quarter. The last Steelers drive, I want to say that TJ Warren was in for the Steelers over Najee Harris. So it's been a little bit confusing offensively for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but the defense continues to do what it does. TJ Watt has 3 sacks in week 1. He has a fumble recovery touchdown in week 2. They continue to make big plays, continue to give their team a chance to win. They move to 1-1. And from the Browns' perspective, where do you think they go from here? Nick Chubb, their workhorse back, is out. That being said, their backup, I want to say, had a 100-yard game on 17 carries or something like that. So, not a bad game considering that he wasn't able to play the majority of the game. I want to say he pitched in with, 40, 50 yards of receiving as well. 150 all-purpose yards. That being said, they do have, Deshaun Watson still. They do have Amari Cooper still. They have a Myles Garrett still. They still have that offensive line protecting them and opening up run lanes for Ford, I want to say their running back's name is. What do you see, and maybe where do you go from here if you're a Cleveland Browns fan?
Well, I think one move we may see, and I think it's already been reported that he's in Cleveland for a visit, is Kareem Hunt to come back to the team after spending the last couple of years with Cleveland. So that's a move we may see the Browns make. But I like what I saw from Jerome Ford in this one. He had a beautiful, I think it was 60 or 70-yard touchdown run. I mean, he just turned on the Jets and he was gone. I didn't think he had that kind of burst in him, but incredible play from Jerome Ford in that one. And I think that in terms of this game, I mean, the big concern is that Deshaun Watson just still does not look like anything near his former self. I mean, he really cost the Browns this game when you look at it. The two, turnovers. I think the first one wasn't really his fault. He got hit, and then it led to the interception. But the fumble was pretty bad. He had a couple of face mask penalties, which you usually don't see, but he grabbed, he was trying to stiff arm and he grabbed the face mask of the Steelers defender. So that really hurt the Browns at points during this game. And, it's hard to tell with these games because these AFC North matchups are always so close. But I think at the end of the day, the Browns have not looked great offensively despite their decent start to the season. And we'll have to see how that Chubb injury, because I think Chubb is really their engine on that side of the ball. So we'll see how that affects them going forward. And I'm really interested to see how the Browns rest of their season plays out, because that is a very talented team, like you said, very talented defense as well. But Nick Chubb is really the thing that makes them go on offense. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the rest of their season goes.
I think ultimately, as a majority of fan bases teams kind of depend on, it'll come down to Deshaun Watson, the quarterback position, and can Deshaun Watson, I don't even know necessarily if he has to come into old Deshaun Watson form. I want to say it was what was it? Nick Saban called him Michael Jordan in cleats or something like that. We don't need Michael Jordan in cleats. We need a guy that can kind of manage the game. I believe Cleveland likes to run the football, open up play action. You have a good, you have a number one receiver in Amari Cooper. Is it Elijah Moore?
Yeah,
Elijah Moore. David Njoku. You have some solid weapons. I would imagine Kareem Hunt will be in the building any day, at least by next week, depending on maybe if maybe they wait a week. Ford shows himself another week. Maybe they tend to lean towards that direction of Ford. But I wouldn't be surprised if Kareem Hunt ends up a Cleveland Brown by the end of the week. So to close things out, the Pittsburgh Steelers beat the Cleveland Browns 26-22. And the next Monday Night Football game was the New Orleans Saints beating the Carolina Panthers 20-17. I wasn't able to catch much of the second half of this ball game. I would say it was maybe a little bit of a off night for Derek Carr, if that's what maybe you want to call it. But personally, Jason, I think that should be a little bit expected. Obviously, Derek Carr coming over in the offseason, totally new scheme, new system, new weapons, still learning personalities, body language, all that good stuff, building chemistry, all that stuff, timing, right? So maybe to be a little bit expected, and we saw that a little bit last week that they didn't maybe get off to the start that maybe they wanted to. I know Derek Carr had 300 yards passing, but there was definitely some lulls in the game a little bit. I want to say they only scored 16 points last week. There was definitely a low-scoring game that the Saints were in last weekend. And Derek Carr, he went 21-36, 228, and one interception, not throwing a touchdown pass. But ultimately, the only stat that matters, Jason, win one in the stat column. So from the Saints' perspective, the defense, from a fantasy owner of a Saints defense, like to see when they're able to do, not surrender a lot. And I guess that kind of leads into Carolina perspective from offense. What have you seen from Bryce Young through 2 weeks, Jason?
To be honest, I haven't really been able to catch a lot of the Panthers game. I didn't really catch any of this game. Like I said, I was mostly watching the Cleveland and Pittsburgh game. But from what I've heard, Bryce Young has not looked that great the first couple weeks of the season. Hard to expect it because I think that the big thing is they traded away their number one receiver in order to acquire Bryce Young in that trade. So I mean that didn't really make too much sense. From the Panthers' perspective, even though you did secure your quarterback in the future there. But I haven't heard too many great things so far from Bryce Young. Still super early. The Panthers are really a rebuilding team, so I'm not too worried yet about him. But from the Saints' perspective, one thing I did see from this game, Chris Olave had a disgusting catch. I think it was a deep pass, but like a diving, kind of juggled it, and he was able to haul it in. I mean, just a really impressive play. So that was impressive. Olave, I think, is in his second year now. So if he could take a big jump this year, the Saints offense, if Michael Thomas can stay healthy, he looks pretty good through the first couple weeks doing, Michael Thomas thing. So I think if those pieces can start to come together, Carr can get more comfortable in the offense. The Saints should be a pretty good team this year.
Yeah, and Taysom Hill, we saw a little bit more Taysom Hill this week as well. They have some weapons to be a very good offense, and I think they will turn into form here when Derek Carr. You mentioned Michael Thomas starting to come into form, be that old Mike Thomas, maybe not the old Mike Thomas that was dominant. I wouldn't maybe sell Saints fans on getting excited for that Michael Thomas, but I feel like Michael Thomas could be a productive. Very adequate receiver for Derek Carr, as well as their new number one receiver in Chris Olave, who had that nice 100 catch that you mentioned. And I think he's only scratching the surface for what he can become. And I think Derek Carr and him and Chris Olave will continue to build a chemistry for years to come. I guess I'm probably not alone that I like the Saints and what they're doing, and I think the direction that they're going in to the future. So. To close out Monday Night Football, Jason, we had the New Orleans Saints beating the Carolina Panthers 20-17. The Pittsburgh Steelers beating the Cleveland Browns 26-22. All right, Jason, is there anything final thoughts on week 2 from a Monday night perspective, from any game perspective, anything that you wanted that comes to mind, shout outs, anything like that?
Yeah, so the NFC South, I just wanted to comment. I mean, the Panthers are 0-2, but everybody else in that division is 2-0 through 2 weeks. So that's going to be a very interesting division to see how that shakes out this year. Atlanta's an interesting team with a very run-focused offense. Bijan Robinson looks like a beast. The Saints look pretty good, like you said. Baker and the Buccaneers, I mean, they're a wild card in all this, but Baker seems to have great chemistry with Mike Evans. So really interested to see how that division shakes out this year.
Yeah, man, that's a great point by you. And I think there's been a lot of, I wouldn't say pleasantly surprised kind of storylines, but there's been a lot of, and maybe this is kind of foolish because there's only been 2 weeks. And of course, there's been a lot of, kind of back and forth and a lot of teams kind of being competitive and stuff like that. And within divisions and stuff like that, you're mentioning the NFC South, with that division being 3 of the teams being 2-0. The AFC has kind of been, maybe not what we expected with, maybe some of the Cincinnati Bengals, LA Chargers, but some other teams like, the Titans that maybe we didn't expect have kind of risen to the occasion and been a little bit more competitive than maybe as expected. So just been some good storylines. And I find myself, when I tune into Red Zone or whatever time of the day it may be, when the Bills aren't playing, and I'm able to kind of fully lock in. There's a lot of good storylines, and it flips to another game, and I'm like, ooh, let's see who's playing on this, or maybe I already have a player in mind that I'm interested to see, or maybe just storyline. So there's been a lot of good things to follow through 2 weeks, and that will close out, I guess. Quickly shout out to our faithful listener Blake. He says the Seahawks will win the NFC West. Jason, I gotta disagree with you on that one. I believe, no hot take here, but I believe it'll be the 49ers. And then I don't know, honestly, who will be else be in there.
Pretty decent, honestly.
Yeah. So, I don't count out the Seahawks by any means. to be in there. But the Rams with Matthew Stafford, they haven't had Cooper Kupp yet, so we'll see what the Rams look like in a few weeks. And I guess that'll close things out from a NFL perspective, Jason. 1 hour into the pod. We'd appreciate if you guys could support both Jason and I's channel. You can find Jason over on YouTube at Hussey's Huddle, Twitter as well. Like, comment, subscribe to Jason's channel, subscribe to my channel. Go follow and like, review and all that good stuff over on the Apple Podcast for my account over there. Jason, let's get into the Buffalo Bills 38-10 victory over the Las Vegas Raiders. I was, I could already see the little smile, smirk on your face. I've definitely been waiting for this one. It was I wouldn't say it was a tough time to get on here after a Bills loss. Like I said, I think it was a little bit therapeutic, I guess you could say. It was tough going through that week, hearing all the haters, and I know it's Twitter, and I know I shouldn't kind of usually these things don't get, I don't let them get to me personally, but I keep receipts, Jason. I bookmark all these Mac Jones comparisons to Josh Allen, and Josh Allen's last 16 games aren't that much different than Mac Jones. This is no offense to Mac Jones. I'm not that guy to slight any quarterback in the NFL, because I feel like every NFL quarterback is there for a reason, and he's amongst the 32, 64, whatever you want to say, best throwers in the world. If you want to include the CFL, 70 throwers, whatever you want to say. These guys are there for a reason. They're not bums as much as I maybe want to call them a bum, or maybe I do let it slip that this guy's a bum or whatever. Just disrespectful, in my opinion. I guess, Jason. Sorry, I guess, Jason, you maybe sit back and relax. I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here before I kind of pass it over to you, because I was very, very quietly kind of upset from the slander, the disrespect. I would just call it disrespect, honestly, because I feel like the team we built, the resume that Josh Allen's built the last few years here, not to call anybody else out around the league, but Patrick Mahomes didn't have Patrick Mahomes-like game for the second week in a row. Nobody blinks an eye. Nobody says anything, because the Chiefs won, right?
Yeah.
The Bills won. So this week, obviously, all things are roses, but I just don't. I don't like the kind of when Josh has a bad game, like any good player, like any great player has a bad game here or there. I don't like the kind of the regression, I guess I like to kind of put on Josh Allen at Josh, and this is kind of what I like to maybe, I guess, get across to maybe maybe fans that maybe aren't aware of Josh Allen's game, or maybe just maybe aren't aware of maybe what I think most Bills fans opinions are. They know Josh Allen's faults, right? They're not trying to excuse Josh Allen's mistakes. I think a lot of Bills fans kind of completely agree that sometimes Josh Allen has these that maybe Bills fans categorize as sugar high Josh moments, or maybe lack of mental processing, whatever you want to maybe call it. At Josh Allen's peak, at his best, there is one other better quarterback in the entire world, NFL, better than Josh Allen, is Patrick Mahomes. I put Joe Burrow personally at the same level. I don't personally. I think they're all in the same tier, and I don't like to say Joe Burrow's better than Josh Allen. I don't like to say Josh Allen's better than Joe Burrow. I think they both do things better than one another. I think ultimately, as a Bills fan, obviously I'm probably a little bit biased. I probably have Josh Allen number 2. I just think people are kind of quick to get off the bandwagon, and maybe that's the the kind of era we live in, or just maybe the world we live in, right, Jason, with social media and everyone being able to have an opinion. We have all these ESPN shows that get on here, and everybody and their mother has a voice to be able to let be heard on a Monday morning or whatever. And It just kind of it bugs me because we have these things, Jason. And I guess maybe this is a perfect time to get into it, right? And it's the stat world that we live in, or maybe analytic world that we live in, right? And I don't want to say it's on a weekly basis, but you know what? Maybe a handful of times a year we have these things that come up, and it says, Josh Allen, only player in NFL history to do this, or only player in NFL history to pass for this. And I think people forget that maybe that they maybe categorize that as easy, or maybe it's like that he fluked into it. Obviously, we had this Sunday. I believe he had his 5th performance of 3 touchdowns and 80% completion. So just a fun. And excuse me, that was before the age of 30. So I would imagine maybe some of those guys like maybe Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers have done that before. But Josh Allen silenced the doubters this week, going 31-37. I will say 4 of those 6 incompletions, Jason, were either throwaways or spikes. So basically throwaways. They were screens into the ground, throwing the ball into the ground, and or throwing the ball out of bounds. He had 2 incompletions. If you remember, the one was to Dalton Kincaid. That was Dalton Kincaid was kind of hit pretty hard by the safety. I wouldn't say it was a drop football by any means, but maybe a wrong decision, or maybe a little bit late. And the other one was the Dawson Knox dropped one-handed kind of touchdown attempt. I'm not too sure if you've seen the replay or saw that the broadcast booth kind of panned to Stephon Diggs being wide open in the back of the end zone. I'm not too sure exactly from maybe Josh Allen's angle. I'd be hard pressed, or maybe I would have loved to maybe one of the reporters to ask if that football, because that football was I'm not too sure if you saw the location of the football. It was a little bit of a higher throw. I'm not too sure if maybe it was just because of the pressure in Josh's face, or if maybe he was tending to maybe throw that over Dawson Knox and that defender and had Stephon Diggs in mind. Now, that being said, I want to say that we ended up scoring on that possession. Or no, that was the 4th and 1. We turned it over on the goal line, actually, I want to say.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what drive that was.
I want to say because that was the 4th down. I want to say that play specifically was the 4th down. Forgive me, folks. I don't have that in my notes specifically. But to get back on Josh Allen, like I said, the 2 incompletions were in the end zone, and the 4 other incompletions were throwaways into the stands or into the dirt. So Josh Allen just had himself a day at the office, and that's just kind of, I guess, all I wanted to do is defend my quarterback, defend QB1. And Jason, I'll let you go, buddy. What did you see from Josh Allen in week 2?
Well, I mean, the thing is with Josh Allen is, like you said, we know he's going to have some of these, dud of games. That's just who he is. I mean, he's very much, has volatility to his game. He's going to have great games, and he's going to have a few stinkers. I mean, that's just the reality of his career to this point. But like you said, we should not be surprised that this guy bounces back right away from poor performance in week 1, especially when the Jets are a team that's proven to play the Bills very well defensively. So, I mean, I'm not surprised that they went out and just destroyed the Raiders in this one. Really a slow start. I was kind of concerned after that first drive. The Raiders went right down the field. I mean, really, it looked like they had the Bills defense off balance. And then the Bills, I believe, went 3-and-out on their first possession. But really that Terrell Bernard interception really got things going for the Bills in this one. And then Josh Allen, it wasn't a ton of big plays in this one, but he took what the defense gave him. Very efficient day, really spreading the ball around to a multitude of different targets. So, I mean, I think that was the game that we needed to see from Josh. No turnovers, I think, is the big number in this one. And ultimately 3 touchdown passes and 287 yards. So, I mean, just, really strong game for Josh. And hopefully we see that continue going forward. But, I mean, in terms of his placement among the best quarterbacks in the NFL, he's right up there, really in the top 3 with those, Burrow and Mahomes, because nobody really has, and I'll throw Jalen Hurts even into that conversation, because the ceiling is just so much higher with those guys than pretty much anybody else in the league.
Another great quarterback, Jalen Hurts, didn't have himself a great week. Guess what? He's probably going to bounce back. Nobody's saying the sky's falling with Jalen Hurts. He's not Jalen Hurts.
Yeah,
Jalen Hurts is top 5. I don't know if I'd go maybe as far as top 5, top 6, top 7 at minimum, right?
Yeah.
and nobody is screaming that the sky is falling. The sky is falling for Jalen Hurts and all this stuff. I'm not even sure if I hear it for Justin Herbert, and they're 0-2, and it's like this is it. I'm glad we don't do this on Sunday night or kind of after the game, because the rant probably would have been maybe a little bit more heated than 2 days after, when I'm able to cool down, or maybe even the rant that I would have after the Bills win a Super Bowl and I can bring out all those receipts that I have. But until then, I have to keep those hidden in the bookmarks. But the Bills had 40 minutes, just over 40 minutes. I want to say 40 minutes and 9 seconds of time of possession. So they had two-thirds of time of possession over the Oakland Raiders. And Jason, 3 of the Bills' 5 drives lasted over 6 minutes. They had an 11-play, 84-yard, 6-minute and 6-second Knox touchdown drive. That was the one in the I want to say the second quarter to close out the second half, I want to say. Then they start. So that's a pivotal. I want to say they call it the middle 8. So the coaches call that in professional football the middle 8. The last 4 minutes of the first half and the first 4 minutes of the second half. The Bills closed out things. I want to say the Raiders got the ball with minimal time to go in the second quarter. I want to say it was like maybe 30 seconds or something like that. They didn't do much. I want to say they maybe attempted a pass or two, and then they end up kneeing it to halftime. The Bills end up going to start the second half, 15-play, 75-yard, 9-minute touchdown drive. End up going to Gabe Davis on a touchdown drive, multiple fourth down conversions. And then the third drive, 11-play, 95-yard, 7 minutes and 32-second touchdown drive that ended up in Damian Harris punching it in. Jason, I'm not too sure if it was the Harris touchdown drive or the Davis touchdown drive, the 11 or 15-play drive. I want to say it was the 15-play drive. The Buffalo Bills did not record a negative play or a incompletion. So they either went forward running the football or they completed a pass on every single play that drive. I mentioned it earlier, Josh Allen could take a page out of Tua's book. He absolutely took the page and snatched the book himself, taking what the defense gave him. What Bills fans have been preaching: if you can do all year long, you will win a lot of football games. We will win a lot of football games. We saw, and you know what? This is why, I think why Patrick Mahomes is in a kind of league of himself, tier of himself. Why NFL pundits, fans don't kind of scream the sky's falling when Patrick Mahomes has these games. Patrick Mahomes has I don't want to say perfected, but he knows how to win ugly. The Chiefs, the NFL maybe 3 or 4 years ago have kind of changed the style of play into this, maybe pass heavy, pass first type of kind of mentality. The Chiefs kind of, teams started to catch on. Now they started to play this kind of shell coverage, this 2 high safety, 4 deep look, a lot of cover 4, a lot of cover 6. Teams started to kind of do that towards the Bills this last, I would say, maybe 20 or so games towards the end of 2021, going into 2022 last season, and then into this season. If Josh Allen's able to take a page out of Patrick Mahomes' playbook, learn to kind of maybe win these games ugly. And you know what? Maybe you're not going to get some of these deep shots that you like, but take what the defense is going to give you. Yes, maybe you have these drives that are frustrating. You go, maybe 3 and out sometimes. Maybe you're not able to even get in the field goal range. You're able to punt the ball sometimes, but trust that your defense will have your back, get these stops, and then trust that you'll be able to outscore the other team in the end. To I guess maybe to flip it into a defense perspective, you mentioned so the it's funny, Jason. So the Raiders start way too easy. I have it in my notes. 5 plays, 75-yard touchdown drive. Jason and I are messaging each other right away on Twitter. Oh my goodness, I'm so nervous. And personally, I said I'm worried about the defense. I messaged you that right away, right? I said I'm worried about the defense. Little did we know they absolutely stick it to my face and pretty much have a fairly clean game outside of that first drive, Jason. The Raiders go down, 5 plays score. The Bills go 3-0. They had 2 runs to start the drive, 1 scramble. They can't convert on the 3rd and 5. They punt. Daquan Jones, a really team effort to kind of flip the switch for the Buffalo Bills. A team effort. Daquan Jones with the pressure. Gregory Rousseau with the tip. Terrell Bernard ends up coming down with the interception. And pretty much the Buffalo Bills did not look back from there on out. And Jason, an absolute crazy stat. I laughed out loud when I heard this at work today when I was listening to shout out to One Bills Live, Steve Tasker, Chris Brown, all the good stuff that those guys do over there. The Bills radio show every day, Monday to Friday. I want to say 9 to 12 those guys are on the air, somewhere around there. The Raiders had, of their 9 drives, Jason, one of their 9 drives had more than 5 plays. So 8 drives, they had 5 plays or less, or excuse me, 4 plays or less. So that one drive was on the first drive of the game. And then from there on out, they pretty much had 3 and outs, pretty much. Or they got 1 first down on the first play and then punted the football.
Wow.
An absolute great game. I guess I haven't said it yet, actually. I want to say last year's rushing champ, all-pro running back, held 9 carries, -2 rushing yards on the day. Josh Jacobs. That is something else that we were going back and forth in the Twitter DMs. Jason hit me with the crying emoji. Josh Jacobs is on my fantasy team, but I believe he had a reception that maybe gave it a little bit more of a respectable showing for you, Jason. Hopefully able to maybe carve you out maybe a 10-pointer, double-digit fantasy performance off that one reception alone. I wouldn't imagine he was able to get anywhere close to double digits, but usually that's a sacrifice you're willing to make as Bills fans when your team's able to come out in the win column. So I guess, Jason, let's get into let's stay, I guess, on the defensive side of things. Matt Milano, let's stay with the positive side. Matt Milano, he better be on it. You got mossed next Monday night. I'm not too sure if they had the segment. I definitely missed it if they had it on the Cleveland Browns Pittsburgh Steelers Monday night. You got mossed segment. Matt Milano mossed Josh Jacobs. He literally plucked it off his head and said, "Give me that football." Matt Milano, all-pro Lano, second interception through 2 weeks, continues to, I've said it for a few years. I've been mad at myself that I haven't been able to kind of have the confidence to tweet it out. I've said for a few years, I think Matt Milano is the best player on the Buffalo Bills defense. I don't think that's a hot take. Going back to a few years ago, even when we had Trey White before the injury, 2022, I guess Trey got hurt. I guess 2021. I guess Vaughn got hurt last year. Excuse me. Going back to 2021, earlier in the season, I want to say Trey got hurt into Thanksgiving. Earlier into that season, I definitely was a little bit boisterous with some of the people that I watched the games with. I thought Matt Milano was the best defensive player on the Bills. On the Bills defense, excuse me. And I didn't think that was any of a hot take. He continues to have just a outstanding performance. I want to say he's the highest graded linebacker when it comes to PFF. Through 2 weeks, him and Demario Davis. Personally, I don't think this is any sort of hot take, bias take. I think Matt Milano is up there amongst the best off-ball linebackers in the NFL. I think of Fred Warner, of course. I think of Nick Bolton in Kansas City. Maybe Devin White down in Tampa. Not too many other names. Darius Leonard, and maybe we've seen Darius Leonard have a few tough seasons here in recent years. So for my money's worth, I think Matt Milano is the best off-ball linebacker in the AFC, and maybe you could argue in the whole NFL as a whole. And I guess maybe not statistically, it wasn't a very dominant game, but Ed Oliver, for my money, I thought he was very disruptive this week. He obviously had the first play of the game. He had the TFL, absolutely blew up his offensive guard in front of him. Basically walked his offensive lineman back into the running back. Was able to have the TFL and was very disruptive all day long. So, Jason, was there anything that you wanted to maybe shout out from a defensive perspective positively?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just echo what you said about Milano. I think he is right now playing, I mean, with last year and the first 2 games of this year, as well as any linebacker in the NFL, off-ball linebacker that is. So, I mean, I agree he is the best player on this Bills defense right now. I think last year or the year before, you could have argued it was like a guy like Jordan Poyer maybe, and then before that, maybe like Trey White. But as of right now, it's definitely got to be Matt Milano. He is really proving the Bills right for making that decision to keep him instead of Tremaine Edmonds. I mean, it's really early, obviously, for that, and we haven't really seen the full, sample size from Terrell Bernard yet. But so far, the returns look promising in that regard, and Milano is just, continuing his excellent play. And I mean, just the impressive effort in this one in terms of stopping the run. I mean, the Bills have just been notoriously a team that people have picked on in terms of running the ball against us as a more of a light defense, but we stepped up in this one, stopped the run. And I have a stat for you. I saw it on Twitter. It's like the first defending rushing champ to finish with a negative yardage in a game, like in the last 50 years or something like that, something crazy like that. But that just shows you how dominant the Bills were in this one in terms of the run defense. And overall, it was just a really strong team effort all around. Can't really find anything to pick holes in other than that first drive where the Raiders really marched down the field quickly and scored.
I thought the Bills fell off though, Jason. I thought the Bills were done after week 1. My mistake. So Jason, this is where maybe I have to be a little bit, I would say maybe nitpicky. Just maybe this is maybe a good talking point because we went back and forth with it right away in the DMs, right? We were concerned about the defense right away, right? But maybe more so where I was coming from, and maybe more so of maybe my concern moving forward is maybe the defensive secondary and their maybe long speed, I would say. We saw Davante Adams take advantage of the secondary a little bit on the first possession. Now, like I said, Jason, maybe this is a little bit more nitpicking, and maybe I'm just, rightfully, I think rightfully so. Maybe I am, I don't even want to say living in my fear, but maybe I am kind of a little bit worried about, how this secondary would kind of match up with a Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. Not to say maybe the Bengals haven't showed the best of themselves, but I even think of a Jamar Chase, a T. Higgins, what we saw in the playoffs, right? And not to discredit or even say that I think that the secondary has taken a step back, because I don't think so. So that's why I think it's tough to the conversation I'm trying to have, Jason, right now, because I'm contradicting myself, one, and it's nitpicking when you only give up 10 points, right? But I guess kind of what more so I'm thinking of is long term, and those games in January, those important games against those high powered offenses in the Dolphins, Bengals, Chiefs, that kind of thing. When I look at a Jordan Poyer, when I look at a Micah Hyde, I've seen them maybe on the wrong side of maybe some wrong angles here in the last few weeks. I think of that Jalen Warren touchdown in the preseason. It maybe whether you want to call it maybe Jordan Poyer put into a tough position, having to make a tough tackle in the open field. I thought maybe it was more of a bad angle took into the ball. And you know what? They are getting up there in age, right? And I think they're maybe towards maybe the back half, and not maybe they are towards the back half of their career more so than the front half of the career, right? That being Poyer, Hyde, and Tre'Davious White. Now that being said, Hyde the three of them had themselves pretty much I wouldn't say a flawless game, but they didn't really have much outside of the first possession of, receptions given up on them, big plays given up on them. Terrell Bernard, Christian Benford is probably the maybe the weakest link, maybe the biggest question mark that you have, but he shows pretty well for himself on a weekly basis, obviously given that role for a reason to start opposite of Tre'Davious White. We saw that maybe questionable pass interference that the ref threw but then picked up on Christian Benford. But is there maybe any concerns, or maybe am I just being a little bit nitpicky, Jason, in your opinion?
I think, like you said, the biggest tests are yet to come. So, I mean, I don't think the Jets and the Raiders represent the biggest challenge. Obviously, the Raiders have Davante Adams, Jets have Garrett Wilson, but they don't really have those explosive offenses. like you were saying, like the Chiefs and the Bengals and some of these other teams do. I think Washington actually has a very good receiving core who are playing next week. So I think that will be an interesting test. Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, I think those guys are very talented. So we'll see how they match up against them. But I think that, if I had to pick a weak point on this team so far this year, it probably would have to be the cornerback room. I think there's been a couple of occasions where they've gotten, toasted deep down the field. So I think at the end of the day, that's something that'll have to be cleaned up. But it's a passing league. You got to have some kind of weakness. So I think we'll have to see how it plays out going forward. But yeah, I'm a little bit concerned. Maybe that Trey White may not be able to get back to that elite number one cornerback status like he was before the injury. Because, like I said, I mean, those first 3 or 4 years of his career, he was really excellent. I mean, really a cornerstone of this defense. So I don't know if you would say that right now, but we'll see how the rest of the season plays out in that regard.
Yeah, and I can't lie. I did see a tweet. I want to say it was John Scott. I'm not sure if you follow John Scott. He's a beat reporter for the Buffalo Bills. I want to say to start the game, Trey White was actually shadowing. Excuse me, this is taking it back to week 1. John Scott was mentioning that Trey White was actually shadowing Garrett Wilson for the majority of that first half, and I want to say that they ended up going away from that in the second half. I'm curious how they feel about Tre'Davious White, inside the building, as far as the confidence in him. If they were able to give him that task of shadowing the number one receiver on other teams, how would he do in that aspect? And maybe they feel like maybe they can, maybe leave Trey on an island, and maybe he's able to get back to old form and able to, maybe give it a little bit more help and coverage to the other side of the field. I'm curious how the Buffalo Bills decide to attack things. Obviously, new defensive coordinator in Sean McDermott. Also, how will the addition Von Miller change things, right? How will that addition of getting the passer a lot faster, having the ball have to come out? Hopefully, we're having crossing our fingers. Von Miller, Leonard Floyd, Gregory So, all the boys are hungry and healthy come playoff time and ready to hunt, so that things are easier on the secondary. And I guess to go back to the offensive side of things, Jason, before we get out of here, and then a couple quick shout outs that I had in mind. I have 3 offensive mind shout outs, obviously, for each position group, I guess. Number 1, shout out to Spencer Brown. Had himself a fairly decent day at the office. I want to say now that the PFF grades have coming out, I want to say he was charged with a few QB hurries as well as a few quarterback hits. Now, that being said, I'm not the biggest I don't use PFF all the time. Usually I try to compare kind of all the kind of ingredients, if that's what you want to call it, eye test, PFF grade, maybe stats if that's what you want to look at it, and then kind of prepare. But Spencer Brown had himself, for what kind of maybe was my biggest concern going into this game was I knew Max Crosby kind of lines up on the offensive right side, so that would be on Spencer Brown's side, and maybe how are they going to deal with Max Crosby, and would they let him ruin the game? And for the most part, Spencer Brown did a good job. Now, that being said, I know there was a lot of Dawson Knox kind of attached at the hip and a lot of help by chips from the running backs, tight ends, that kind of thing. But if Spencer Brown's able to be an average or an adequate right tackle and just do his job, not get Josh Allen killed, I think that would just be go a long way to the Bills having success, and probably keep a few less wrinkles off my forehead when it comes to protecting Josh Allen. And I think, and not this is a slight at Spencer Brown by any means, right? But he's probably the weakest link on our offensive line. I think, the 3 guys on the left side, that being Deion Dawkins, McGovern, and Mitch Morse, are kind of veterans and I would say average at best, or maybe average at minimum pros, right? So they kind of you know what you're going to get from them. And Osiris Torrance through 2 games has been it seems like he hasn't been a rookie. It seems like we haven't had to, oh my goodness, Torrance got beat again, or Torrance missed his block or something like that. It seems like Torrance has been a very key contributor through 2 weeks. So shout out to the offensive line and Spencer Brown specifically. My second shout out, James Cook in the running back stable. Shout out to James Cook. His first 100-yard game as a professional, was able to go over 100 yards, 17 carries, 123 yards, 7.2 yards per carry. Last shout out to my fantasy team. I was cringing because He had such a good game. I want to say he had 4 receptions for 36 yards as well. So over 150 total all-purpose yards. So a very good day at the office. If he's able to punch in a touchdown, he has a phenomenal day fantasy-wise. And that's just nitpicking, honestly, because we did get the dub. And honestly, if we're able to see Latavius Murray, Damon Harris come in on the goal line like that, be effective, take carries off Josh Allen, James Cook's body, prolong their hopefully health into the playoffs, that sort of thing, longer in the season. That is all good by me. So that is just kind of the fantasy manager speaking out, I guess, in me. And I want to say, what was the other running backs? The other running backs went, so Damian Harris, 7 carries, 33 yards, 1 touchdown, doing his job. Latavius Murray, 6 carries, 22 yards, 1 touchdown as well. Maybe not the most glamorous stat line that you want to see, but the 1 touchdown punching in when your number's called, that's all that we want to see as Bills fans. And I think that is kind of the maybe the perfect maybe I won't say the perfect, but probably the backfield that Bills fans have been calling for a number of years. No slight at Devin Singletary, but I don't think he was the quite dynamic or maybe had the breakaway speed that one James Cook had, and then I don't think we've ever had the true downhill presence that Damian Harris and Latavius Murray have been bringing through 2 weeks through Josh's career. So it's been a great thing to see. And my last shout out is to all the weapons. I think this is the recipe for success for me, Jason. When it comes to the Buffalo Bills offense, spreading it around to all the playmakers, letting them have impact plays of them on their own. Excuse me. Stephon Diggs, 7 receptions, 66 yards. Gabe Davis, six catches, 92 yards, 1 touchdown. Kincaid, 5 receptions, 43 yards. Dawson Knox, obviously the touchdown, 3 receptions, 10 yards, almost a Travis Kelce touchdown stat line if he had maybe a couple more touchdowns. The little receptions, receiving yards, and 1 touchdown that was big. As well as Shakir having the 1 reception, 1 touchdown on 10 yards. If Shakir, Sherfield, or Hardy's able to kind of chip in with making sure they have impact play here or there. It doesn't necessarily have to be a touchdown, but cash in when their numbers called. I think that's just what the doctors order. And then the touchdown position, I expect Kincaid to have around 4 or 5 targets, or excuse me, 4 or 5 receptions, 7 or 8 targets a game, around 50 yards, and then Dawson Knox to be that key contributor in the run game, as well as be a favorite target of Josh Allen in the red zone on key downs, whether it be third down or those short and manageable situations. And then if you're not able to bracket Stephon Diggs, what I think teams will probably try to do is probably bracket and take away Stephon Diggs and have that Bill Belichick take away your best option and let someone else beat me. If Gabe Davis is continuing to beat single coverage and those other weapons are able to continue to do that, I think the Bills will have success on offense, and you won't find the Bills struggling offensively, or maybe even Josh Allen struggling or pressing offensively, finding he needs to force things or force it to Stephon Diggs, and I think that's where turnovers and that kind of bad football for the Bills offensively comes to mind. So, Jason, is there anything that maybe you want to close out from a Buffalo Bills Week 2 win over the Las Vegas Raiders? We're at 90 minutes here, kind of come to an end. Is there anything that comes to mind from the Bills' perspective, buddy?
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback on your point about the Bills' run game, because I was talking to my buddy during this game, and I mean, he's a big Devin Singletary guy. He got a Singletary jersey, so I mean, he loves Devin Singletary as much as anybody. But he was even saying it's like the run game just looks so much different. The group of running backs that we have compared to the previous couple of years, like we looked a couple of years ago when we had Zach Moss and Singletary. Basically, very similar players. I mean, they don't really give you different skill sets. Now, all 3 guys, I think Damian Harris is kind of a blend of power and finesse. Murray's more just a power back. Cook gives you a lot of that breakaway speed and catching ability that you like to see. And I think it just looks a lot more different. Cook looks like a lot more of a high upside running back that we've had in the Josh Allen era, really since LaShawn McCoy's heyday with the Bills. So really happy to see that. And I mean, Latavius Murray is going to be huge, around the goal line. I think that one goal line stand that the Raiders made against us. I think on third down they gave the ball to Latavius Murray. I think they had the ball at like the 3-yard line. They got it down to the 1. I think if they went for it on 4, I mean, they did go for it on 4th and 1, but I think they threw the ball there. If they had just given the ball to Murray again, I think they probably would have punched it in. So, I mean, I think that's a big thing for the Bills because they've struggled in these short yardage situations over the past couple of years. So I'm really excited about this running back room going forward.
Yeah, I think the different skill sets is I love that's what you said, and I think we even saw Damian Harris return a kick return for, I want to say it was a 40-yard kick return, and something that I wasn't expecting from the big lumbering back that he's kind of been accustomed to we've been accustomed to seeing, excuse me. And here he is breaking off a kick return, and I'm like, first of all, I'm like, what the heck is he doing catching the ball other than Deontay Hardy or I believe it's Khalil Shakur that's back there as well, returning kicks. But it was a pleasant surprise to see Damian Harris can contribute in that special teams aspect because, excuse me, as a running back, if you're that third, fourth running back in your dress on game day, you're probably going to have to contribute somehow on special teams. This being the fact that there's, I believe, 46 guys dressed on game days. The numbers are low enough already. So if you're able to contribute on special teams like that, I believe Damian Harris is going to be probably our special teams back that's on punt coverage, kickoff, kick return, that sort of thing. So Damian Harris has been great addition as well as Latavius Murray this offseason. Jason, I think that wraps things up, buddy. We week 2 in the NFL already. Things are going to fly by. I can already tell. Already week 3 is going to be here in a matter of days. Jason, is there anything that you'd want to maybe close out? Maybe what the people should be looking forward to, maybe on your channel, anything you got going on?
Yeah, so I have today or yesterday, that is, I released an CFL video on the Ottawa Red Blacks, went over their recent struggles as a franchise. So if you're into the CFL, check that out. But if not, I'm going to have some NFL content coming in the coming weeks, specifically outside of these videos, of course. So keep an eye out for that on my channel, and really excited for the rest of the season.
And as well as if we're on the topic, Jason, maybe just a quick plug for you guys' Monday morning show if you guys want, maybe.
Yeah, so funny enough, because of our work schedules, we're actually going to be recording this week's episode tomorrow. So that's going to be at 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern. It's over on the Markcast. So we stream it live over there and then post on my channel later on. So that will be available to watch on my channel sometime tomorrow night. So if you guys want to check that out, go see that.
Same kind of system or kind of same sort of organization that Jason and I got going on. Kind of just, I want to see you guys go for like 60 to 90 minutes as well, recapping all things that happened throughout the CFL week. So I would imagine, if anyone's tuning in that football fans, I would say a majority of them are probably Canadian or probably a little bit of CFL fans. So go check that out. Jason and Mark Cass, all the boys over there, got a lot of good stuff going on a weekly basis. Excited to check out the episode tomorrow, Jason. I guess that wraps things up. You will see me Friday night. Blake and I will be back after the BC Lions take on the Edmonton Elks in a big Western Division game. You will see the BC Lions post-game show as back as our regular scheduled program. And then Jason and I will be back after another week of NFL football. Week 3, we'll be back to talk all things NFL football. Hopefully another Buffalo Bills win. The Buffalo Bills are on to the Washington Commanders. Week 3, I want to say we travel to the Washington Commanders, if I'm not mistaken, right, Jason?
Yeah, I think that is correct.
So I guess that closes things out. If you guys could continue to support Jason and I, go over to Jason's YouTube channel, my YouTube channel, my Apple Podcast channel, all that good stuff. Like, comment, subscribe, share the podcast, share the YouTube channel. Reminder, I guess, as always, I am on the road to 100 subscribers. Continue to support the channel and hopefully get up to 100 subscribers by Halloween, maybe New Year, who knows when. I just appreciate all the support nonetheless. So we will see you guys next week. Go Bills. Have a good night, everybody.